through the perspectives of culinary practice, sustainable tourism, and socio-ecological systems. This conversation asks how local food cultures can adapt and remain resilient in changing climate, and how communities, chefs, and tourism practitioners can work together to protect and evolve living food heritage. I will be moderating this conversation because I am a strategic designer and systems thinker working at the intersection of sustainability, culture, and social systems. I would like to invite our panelists on stage. Nesta, I'm going to invite you first. Nesta is a marine biologist. You know him already, but for those of you who weren't there for his panel just before this, Nesta Fernandez is a marine biologist and nature educator with Canopy by the Coast. His work looks at coastal ecosystems from mangroves and fisheries to marine biodiversity and megafauna, and how these systems shape the food cultures, livelihoods, and resilience of coastal communities. Today, he will speak about the ecological relationships between coasts, communities, and food systems in a changing climate. Thanks, Nesta. Next, I would like to welcome Sumesh Mangalaseri, a pioneer of community-led tourism in India with over 25 years of experience working at the intersection of tourism, sustainability, and community development. He is the founder of Suyatri Community Tourism, a social enterprise that supports women-led community-based tourism initiatives across India. His work focuses on creating sustainable livelihoods while protecting local culture and ecosystems. Through his work, he brings a valuable perspective on how tourism can be shaped by communities themselves rather than imposed on them. And last but not least, I'd like to invite Chef Shreya Shetty, a Mangaluru-based chef known for her contemporary interpretations of traditional Mangalore and Karnataka cuisine. Through her pop-ups across cities like Mumbai, Bangalore, and Calcutta, she brings regional food traditions to new audiences while staying rooted in authentic ingredients and techniques. She's also the co-founder and executive chef of Buko, one of my personal favorites, an artisanal bakery and cafe in Mangaluru. Through her work documenting and reinterpreting local culinary traditions, she brings an important perspective on how food culture connects place, community, and sustainability. So before we begin and before I join you all at the table, I'd like to ask a question to the audience. So when you hear the words climate change, what does that look like here in Mangalore? Anyone? What does climate change look like in Mangalore? It's more hot. Anything else?
Less fish.
Less fish. Right? What else? Unseasonal rain, like crazy rains. So yes, one of the things might be unseasonally heavy rainfall, and I think Nestor touched upon that in his presentation as well. There's heavy rains, sudden flooding, or the monsoons feel more intense than they used to. Mangalore already receives some of the heaviest rainfall in India, and last year the coast received nearly 3.7 meters of rain. What does that actually mean? It kind of, to put that in perspective, it's like 3 cars stacked on top of each other. That's how much rainfall we received. And when that much rainfall falls in a short period of time, it disrupts farms, fishing patterns, transport, local markets, and ultimately affecting what food reaches our plates and how much it costs. But extreme rainfall is just one visible example. the impacts of climate change also show up in quieter ways and drier ways. In the health of our coastal ecosystems, in fisheries and agricultures, like how you all were talking about, and in how local food cultures evolve over time. And that's exactly what we'll be exploring in this panel. So I'm going to make my way to you. So thank you again for being here with us. Now, Nestor set a great overall context, and all of us are experiencing climate change. Oh, everybody needs their labels out front. We need to be presentable. So I'll get straight into the first question. So each of you work in different aspects of the food system. And whether it's ecosystems, whether it's in the kitchen, whether it's tourism, where are you already seeing the impacts of climate change from your perspective in this system?
Good afternoon, everybody. I think we are already seeing change in terms of, so I'm from the F&B industry, and for us in terms of ingredients itself, we see the direct impact of climate change, right? To give you an example, in 2024, there was a cocoa crisis that happened all across the world, because in West Africa, the crop of cocoa beans, which supplies to 60% of the cocoa requirement of the world, was affected due to rain, due to infections on the cocoa plants, and that led to a minimum 3x time price rise onto our chocolate prices. Now, we are a bakery, and chocolate is the center of everything that we do. And we try our best to work with Indian chocolate makers. We work with Coveter chocolates and, try to source the best that come from, our country itself. But because of this impact that was happening, the crisis was happening somewhere else, but the whole world was impacted, including India. And within, I think, a month, we got a month's notice saying that next month onwards, the prices for cocoa is going to go 3x. And please be ready for it, because you need to figure out and strategize on how you work. You either take out all of the chocolate from your menu, because we don't know how long that's going to last, or you have to rework the pricing and then explain to the guests why you're going to charge 3 times more for a simple chocolate cake that you do. So yeah, I think that example itself defines and answers your question of what you asked us.
So thank you. I think in order to answer this question, I would also like to give you a little broader picture, which I believe it's important, because tourism is always presented as a solution, because always tourism presented as a development option under the notion that this can bring employment, all those sort of things. But I'll give you a larger picture. When it comes to climate change and tourism, tourism is, always a villain and also a victim. So I think both are important in our work. Like I'll tell you, like if you take globally, in terms of carbon emission from tourism sector, today it is 9 to 10%, and it's rapidly growing. And if you take last, 2009 to 2019, the increase is 40%. And the growth figures which people talks about tourism, which says that by 2050 the share from tourism is going to be 40% carbon emission. And you should also understand that any of these regulations like Kyoto to Paris or whatever, tourism is not in any regulatory framework. So the sector is unregulated and it's growing. It's very interesting. Then the second thing, definitely when it comes to locally, of course there are macro impact and micro impact. Like most of the tourism destinations are either mountains or, of course, Mangaluru. Now we are talking about a lot of tourism development in Uttara Kannada, Mangaluru, Udupi and all. It's a coastal area. So, any impact like sea erosion, all these mountains and coastal areas are immediately get its impact. So that is another problem. But when it comes to our day-to-day practice, she was talking about cost. Definitely, if temperature increase, you need more AC, you need more water, and tourism is like very resource-intensive business actually. Like for example, if you take water consumption in tourism sector, which is 4 or 5 times more than what you consume your home. Like for example, 200 liters an average consumption of water for a star hotel tourist, because your swimming pool, your flush system, your 3-4 towels, everything designed in such a way, it's consume a lot of resource actually. So the climate change is definitely we impact several, and also the market. Like for example, I'll tell you one statistics I think it's important. If you take German tourism last year, nearly 4% German travelers cancel their long haul trip because of their concern on air travel, because that is a significant contributor of carbon emission. So there are a lot of impact, this impact in the market segment to our day-to-day expense to everything. So climate change is not going to be, is a major threat. And also like for example, last year Wayanad, it's a major tourism destination. After the landslide, it's completely gone. Uttara Kannada, we had a landslide. So that also affected some of our projects even. So there are definitely a lot of impacts actually, which is very important. Not just tourism industry, but tourism is very vulnerable industry actually.
Yeah. So to answer to this, I'm not going to cover a lot from what I did before, but I want to tell you a story related to climate change that we see. So we go to a lot of these coral spaces. So we do programs, we do walks with kids, and we have one of the most resilient corals we have in Goa. But a lot of these corals are also now bleaching, and we see it with our own eyes. We see it in videos, we talk about it, and a lot of this, so 90% of your bleached corals don't come back. And why is this a problem? It's a problem because they only are 2% of your entire ocean, but they have 25 to 30% of your all fishes. So should we lose corals, we will end up losing most of the fishes and the food that we eat on a day-to-day basis. And we are seeing this directly with another thing that we do with fishermen, as we interview, as we do programs. So we've created a program for educational wise with fishermen where they talk about their experiences. So one of the fishermen that we collaborate with started telling the kids, I've stopped fishing this season because I didn't get enough fish. I'm now going to agriculture. So we are seeing a huge impact of climate change in this. In fact, the animals like dolphins, turtles are ending up starving and coming on the shore dead or severely impacted because there's not enough food, or they are not able to regulate their temperature. So dolphins have a lot of fat in their body, and in waters normally you can see that they're able to regulate. And if you see them outside, they don't die because they suffocate, because they can breathe through lungs, but because of heat. But they are experiencing similar behavior in their own body. It's impacting a lot, and we see it on a day-to-day basis through research, through programs, through tourism, and that's something that I thought I'll add to this. Yeah.
Thank you so much. So what I really like about this panel is that we're looking at climate change and everything that we're experiencing from 3 different perspectives, but it's also all connected. And so, yes, understanding how these changes that you're talking about are real, and it's not like some polar bear, somewhere in the, with ice caps melting. It's here in our home, in our coast, in our country. And so, yes, all of this results in losses of some kind or the other. So, as these systems are changing, what ingredients, practices or knowledge is disappearing. So here is the cultural kind of aspect to our heritage. So in that sense, how is climate change affecting our cultural practices, and what is being lost through these impacts, whether it is culinary or cultural?
Okay, yeah. So, though I'm a marine biologist, I love seafood, and I'm someone who is very pro what kind of fish we have, what we eat. But I had to give up a lot of types of fishes that we eat because one, a lot of them are now either endangered or you don't have a lot of these in the waters. Second thing we have seen with fishermen, and I've seen in restaurants, because a lot of time after field work, you can't go home and cook. We have no choice but to go to restaurants or hotels to have food. We see kingfish, we see pomfret, we see sea bass, we see muru, codfish, all of this. First of all, these are larger fishes that usually, accumulate a lot of toxins, a lot of things. Along with that, it takes much longer for these fishes to repopulate. In fact, because of this, we are seeing a lot of fishers that used to catch small fishes and they would make recipes out of it disappear much around the coast because everyone wants to get the larger fish. So nobody wants to focus at the small impact or the faster growing fish. For example, you would have a sardine. A sardine keeps like 5 lakh eggs a year. Whereas if you go for sharks, and a lot of people on the coast eat shark, they only lay 8 to 15 eggs or give 8 to 15 live births a year. So if we are eating those fishes at the same speed that we're eating smaller fish, we are seeing a lot of this, kind of translate into the whole ecosystem. So, yeah.
So that's really interesting. What you're saying is that culturally, and this also comes with convenience, and almost like, I think it's convenience. When you have a bigger fish, it tastes, a certain way, and you can sell it, better in terms of tourism and cultural or food experiences, culinary experiences. And so it kind of gets homogenized, and we don't kind of preserve the diversity of our food systems and our, the different foods that we have. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, and a lot of this is also tied to the climate and the space. A lot of the larger fish are in systems or in places that need to be biodiverse. They need to eat smaller fish. But because of coral reefs dying off or various different, systems failing, ocean currents failing, they are not replenished enough. And it is also putting a lot of pressure on a lot of these fishermen. And because of that, we are also going to have a big catastrophe in the next 10 to 15 years when it comes to seafood, because it's dwindling very quickly. There are positives to it. There are ways to overcome it, which we'll definitely discuss later. But I would like to give it across to the next.
Shreya?
I'd just like to add to that, since we are already on the topic of food and, overconsumption. Because same thing, just like with fish, where since I do this professionally and whenever we do pop-ups, there is no way I can put bangude and a butai on a menu and people being like, what the hell is a chef, cooking bangude and butai? It's also perception, right? Because for them that is extremely local. Like, no, we don't want to try it. It's not the expensive fish that she's feeding us. Whereas anjal, pomfret, prawns, all of this are under the fancy category. Whereas for us as cooks, we know what are the tastier ones. Even with anjal, even with, which is your kingfish, and you have your pomfrets, the size of the fish matters. Today, if you go to the market, you'll find kingfish that is like this big, which is baby size. They are fishes that grow really large, and the bigger the fish, the better the flavor also. But because of overfishing, they don't care. There's a market for everybody because we are so addicted to fish that somebody or the other will buy it, and that's how it ends up in the market, and that creates this entire cycle We find it unseasonally as well. Generally, since monsoon starts and until, now obviously the dates change, but until the 15th of August is when fishing does not happen in our seas. And that is firstly because the seas are dangerous because of the monsoon, but also it allows the sea to replenish. And but I don't think, other than the fishing communities, the general market really does not care, and they still want the fish, so people find ways to bring it, or they freeze it in big batches and keep. Another ingredient that I feel which is so integral to us, that is, and we are losing the diversity of it, is rice. I think until the 1970s or 1980s, there were about 110,000 varieties of rice, indigenous rice varieties in India. Today we are down to 6,000. We've lost all of that.
Could you repeat those numbers again?
From 1 lakh odd varieties, we are down to 6,000 varieties of indigenous rice.
Wow. Okay.
Whenever people ask me about climate change and the solution to climate change, I tell the answer is all in the past. It's all in the practices that our ancestors did, because they grew indigenous varieties, they grew diverse crops. These rice grains were resistant to climate change to a certain extent. If you go to Sirsi, there were so many varieties of rice that used to be grown, but because they are low yielding crop, they started being changed and replaced by high yielding crops and things that people just wanted. It's demand and supply at the end of the day. We really can't blame climate change. We can't pinpoint farmers saying that, they don't give us the variety. We can't pinpoint fishermen saying that, oh, you don't give us the varieties that were available. It's because people don't want to buy it. When it comes to the market, the fish that does not get eaten by the general public, which are extremely edible, tasty fish, goes into fish meal, which is basically the cheapest category of what you can do with fish. And with rice also, because it's so labor intensive, why would they want to grow anything that a customer will not buy? They are already making smaller margins. And that is, I think it all ties down to that. It's the whole diversity bit that we are losing, through which, again, then it comes into that entire circle. It's because of climate change, but it's also because we started growing singular crop. We started fishing, just for that particular this thing. With chicken also, we only want broilers now. We don't want the local varieties. All of these things comes down to the consumer, which is us.
Yes, and I think that's a really great transition point to Sumesh, because when we decide where we want to travel and what we want to experience, that is the demand, right? It's what we're choosing to invest in. And so on the topic of that demand and supply, can you bring that tourism perspective?
I think it's a very interesting question. One is of disappearance. The other one, I would say, exactly relating to that, is ignored wisdom or destroying solutions. When it comes, I'll definitely come back to tourism. Take tourism destinations, for example. Rapid infrastructure development. It could be a huge resort with huge swimming pools and so on, and also huge infrastructure for tourism. What is happening basically, we are sort of destroying the existing natural solutions. He presented sand dunes and mangroves and all. Even today, we were in Candolim Beach 2 weeks ago, or last week in fact. So we could see that even today they are kind of destroying the sand dunes for tourism infrastructure. And these are very well-known natural barriers. So that is one thing. And I will tell you a couple of examples. Like for example, you take Wayanad, because I'm basically from Wayanad. We had a massive landslide last year, but every year we get landslides. We did an entire mapping of Wayanad, a special mapping where we have vulnerability mapping, floodline mapping, everything in a special map. And when we mapped landslides and landslips, we found that tourism destinations, it is more. Because what has happened actually for construction at places like Wayanad, it's very interesting for us because Mangalore and Uttara Kannada and all, we have the same terrains, and this is happening here also. What they did actually for construction, they do the L-shape cutting of the terrain. So that is creating all lot of, land size and all. So basically, in the name of development, tourism development particularly, we are kind of spoiling existing solutions or natural barriers actually. I have a lot of interesting statistics also that. And when it comes to diversity, which is very important actually, like for example, we always talk about it, like, when you go to Goa, Kovalam and all these tourism places, sometimes I wonder, like German bakery, French bakery, why you need French bakery in a place like Mangalore? I mean, I always wonder, like, why, I mean, because you have excellent, and also which is always related to the resources which you talked about. Like I'm from Wayanad again, we have varieties of rice which you talked about, like for example, certain variety called, we call it all local names, which is suitable for a drought, because which consume very little water. And there is another variety which is suitable for a flood actually. So it is all there, but unfortunately what happening, like you said, the homogenization which is happening in the name of tourism, we are kind of destroying all the diversity. And that's something I feel we should really stop. And I mean, now it's a high time because you're all talking about coastal tourism development. You had a big summit 2 weeks ago. You all want to bring a Goan model of tourism development here. And I don't think it's a good idea.
Nestor's shaking his head. Nestor, why are you shaking your head?
So exactly, to add to this, unfortunately, there's very unsustainable development when it comes to tourism in Goa. We see it on a day-to-day basis. We have something called as dolphin boat ride. Example, we have the highest number of dolphin porpoise washing up dead compared to any other state combined in a year.
Oh my God, that's terrible.
And we have seen it because I do marine ecology programs on boat. We've seen boats chasing dolphin because the expectation is given to tourists that, hey, listen, you paid for this, so we have to show you dolphin. And if you see the dolphin, we'll not show it for 5 minutes, because if we show you for 5 minutes, then obviously what you are doing is not worth it. And we undervalue what we pay for. Like looking at a dolphin for 400 rupees, that's a crime. Dolphins are so unique. We have endangered dolphins, for example. We have seen this unsustainable development happen in jetties, sand dunes again, rocks. A lot of these rocks that have been cut down, they are nurseries for a lot of fishes. We do not want that kind of model progressing to other spaces. And to add to the fishing as well, this is something that we see on a very regular basis, that these larger fishes are popularized. But should you imagine you have it in your platform saying, larger the fish, more heavy metals in your body. Or, larger the fish, the lesser fish you will have, or more money you'll have to pay in the future. So there are campaigns we can talk about later, but I'll just thought
I think that's so important. And what you were alluding to, is that adaptation part of it. Yes, we have these losses, but I think humans are a very creative and adaptable species. We've stuck around for, I think, longer than we should have. Some might argue, but it is about the idea of adaptability, which is also in the climate change conversation, right? How do we become resilient? How do we adapt? So I'd like to shift our conversation to a slightly more hopeful aspect in terms of how are we adapting to the effects of climate change that, yes, is our fault, or human related climate change. How are we adapting in our specific areas of expertise and work?
I think we need to look at from a, I think different perspective. Of course, practice is very important. A lot of good practices exist in tourism, which is really hopeful. Of course, people like us practitioners. But I feel policies are very important, which is like, for example, what is happening, there is no planned tourism development. I haven't seen anywhere in India. You take 70s, we started Rajasthan to Kovalam to Goa, a classic example. None of these destinations are planned actually. There are ways how to plan and all. And now technology is an excellent this thing. When it comes to climate change, especially at places like Mangalore, I feel research is very important. Like for example, I was mentioning a map where you can now technology is available. You can create a map where you can get all your Fedline mapping, everything. Based on that, definitely you can plan actually where you can construct. Like 2-3. I mean, I wouldn't use SON, but still, like for example, there are certain areas you can't do tourism due to various reasons. So there are few areas you may have tourism with existing infrastructure. You don't have to build there because that terrain may not be able to build, various reasons. And there are zones where you can have tourism because this is also part of the visitor management. So the planning, research, policy based on, you have to have a plan. Then definitely comes to practice. There are excellent resources available. Like for example, food is a classic, area. Like for example, we work with Siddhi community. 133 edible leaves they are using day to day. Wayanad it is 144 edible species Adivasis are using. So all these are resources. I'm not saying that, that resource you should bring to Mangalore because, we can have, like for example, if you take Karnataka as a state, you can think of, a collection of niche products in tourism instead of going for a beach tourism plan for entire beach area. No? So every terrain is, every 50 meters you have, another country if you, look
Right.
at.
And so when you talk about adaptability here, you're talking about hyper-localization.
That is important. And one more thing, when I say policy, like the morning discussion was really interesting. He was talking about Gram Sabha. Because when it comes to tourism, if you really look at Panchayati Raj Act, 29 to 30 powers and functions are related with Panchayati Raj Act. Like for example, licensing is a complete responsibility of a Panchayati Raj institution. I mean, infrastructure, so many things. So I think the role of Panchayat and the local community is very important. So that process, I think, that participation is very important. Without that, I don't think any planning is, any sustainable planning is possible.
And so, Sumesh, I want to kind of dive a little deeper into that. From your experience, I know you work with a lot of communities to develop these very intimate, community-oriented travel experiences. And have they been facing the brunts of climate change? Is the first part of the question. And have you seen any positive adaptation from that community to overcome these challenges? If you can give us one example from your work around that.
No, of course, I explained you climate change is a reality. And whatever tourism program, it's really affect. Like whether it is a landslide or, extreme rain. Because nowadays people are also very, careful when we travel. So that impact is definitely there. But I think when we talk about resilience, it's not just about environment resilience. We should also definitely, because tourism is a business model. So we should also talk about economic resilience, and that's very important. Like for example, in our program, we always try to keep tourism as a additional income for the communities whom we work with. Because tourism as a sole model, which is not advisable for such communities for sure. Like for example, we work with farmers. Farmer homestays are there. All these homestays are taking tourism as an additional income. It's working really well. They get around some 20,000-25,000 rupees average monthly. I mean, all these farmers in Wayanad. So we work with Siddhi community. They also work, other areas. It's not a salaried kind of a thing. So we always try to address, tourism from that perspective. Like for example, they have their craft. I was talking to that person who is working on cloth today. How important such work in these communities. So you can definitely diversify, your income. And that is, that I feel it's very important because in my experience for last 25-30 years, tourism is one of the most vulnerable industry in the world, I would argue. Because anyone, like for example, 9/11, now this war, we don't know what is the impact. We already have 2 cancellations. Because of war, because the flight is, not operating. 2 French group were supposed to come, they cancelled too. So, so tourism is a very vulnerable, whether it is a climate change or war, any political. So we have to be very careful when we design even as a business design. So we feel it is very important, and diversifying, income is like agriculture, which is very important in any planning.
Yeah, I think those are all very important principles that can translate across industries. Shreya, would you like to add to that or add your bit? to adaptation?
I think firstly, we need to take the pressure of immediately becoming 100% sustainable. That's where most of us fail, because we'll be like, oh no, I can't do this. It's too tough. I can't give up plastic containers. I can't do this. I can't do that. But I think that the minute we start telling people, do what you can, right? Like, even if you're just carrying your water bottle everywhere, good job. Don't be like, but can you do this also? That puts pressure on people. Then they'll just, you'd rather just give up saying that if I can't do it properly, I'm not going to do it at all. So you bring in smaller practices into your daily life. Look back into the past, because for me, given the industry that I am in, it's always looking back into the past and the past practices, right? Like you were saying that, leaves, edible leaves that I used. Manglo has a lot of that. Edible, inedible, but used for cooking or used, as cooking vessels. You have your mude idlis, you've got your kottiges, they are served in leaves. Yeah, one is made of jackfruit, one is made of screw pine. But these are amazing inventions that our ancestors did that we can bring into our modern lives as well. Now, I would like to give like an example of one of the an event that we had done, a catering, right? And obviously, you try to be as conscious and sustainable as possible, but this one is really close to our heart, because the theme of the event and the menu was called Climate on a Plate. And we had done a little bit of research on indigenous practices. The brief that was given to us by the client was, can you just show what practices from the past can come back into action into today's world? And it took us into like a deeper research mode, how do we get these things done? So I'll just give you a couple of examples. We had set up a live noodle bar, like a noodle counter there, which was called the Uru Noodle Bar. So we basically made semige. There was a live counter where semige was being pressed, string hoppers. We had 3-4 different varieties of meat in different type of preparations. We had 4 different podis, because even the art of making podi, right, your idli podi and your different podis, was a way of having less food give you maximum flavor. So, podi, 1 spoon of podi with your rice and little bit of ghee will still give you so much flavor. And that was a way of them being conscious about how much they are using and what they are making, right?
I think Shreya is making everybody very hungry.
So the Uru Noodle Bar that we had done, we were like, it's going to be like a live tossed noodle sort of an experience for people. And the exciting bit about this was that we actually took the jackfruit kottige bowls and we use them as your Chinese takeout bowls that you get, that they'll put their noodles in and they give, and people loved it. And it was not difficult. It was something that is still there. It's an art that is slowly dying. We fed 100 odd people that day, so we bought about 150 baskets from the local people who sit outside temples, and in Car Street especially, they sit and they make this by hand. And people absolutely loved it, and it was a high-end event. It was not like people did not see it as, they saw it as something extremely exciting. People from outside of Mangalore, they saw the value in it, and they're like, wow, this is a very easy way. And we wanted to actually just see that, we talk about it as being vessels. Can we really utilize it? And that's the best way, instead of going for bagasse bowls. And of course, we use that as well. But why not just use traditional practices? And you kind of encourage them also to continue doing that, right? So that's one way that we try to adapt. Even in Buko, while it is a European Mangalorean inspired space, I'm very careful when I use the word local with Buko, because a lot of people then get confused with the research work that they do, and they think we serve local food as well. But I feel like it's a bakery cafe at the heart of it. And we just try and include as many local ingredients as we can. To give you an example, we don't serve paneer at Buko, because I think as South Indians we don't I mean, paneer is not a part of our daily diet, right? And the minute I add paneer in the vegetarian options, nothing else will sell other than the paneer, you know. So we work with raw brined jackfruit. We make like a jackfruit barbecue sandwich. We make a hot sauce that uses only Byadgi chili. So for certain things we
I love
work,
that hot sauce.
yeah, so with those things we work with farmers directly. Like it's a small bootstrapped business, so it's not like I can do everything the way we want to, but we try and pick and choose. So even for the Byadgi hot sauce that we make, it comes from Gadag. It comes from a farmer who's doing organic farming. So it's our way of just, you know, being supportive in a way that please continue doing this, you know. More cooks, more businesses will start getting this done, and y'all can continue doing the good stuff. We consciously only serve filter coffee at Buko. Till date, it's been 3.5 years since we started that, and till date I get arguments about why there's no cappuccino, and we just be like, we want to try and do what, you know, our heritage has been, you know, doing for this while, and we want to bring it into the modern world. So when you come to a modern cafe, a young generation cafe, and you see filter coffee on the menu, maybe there's a slight chance that your perspective about filter coffee would also change, and you'll continue that tradition as you go by.
Yeah, I think all of those are great examples, and they each call to how we individually, as a person, as a community member, or as an organization, choose how we adapt. And so, Sumesh, do you want to
No, a
add to
couple
that?
of things. I just missed a couple of points. We usually don't build in tourism, actually. We don't build for tourism. So a couple of options, like for example, I noticed this region, especially Udupi, Mangalore and all, we have a lot of vacant houses. We recently set up a model in Udupi where we took a vacant house and now we are working with women self-help group to manage it. So it's a scalable model actually. So you don't have to build for tourism. So those kind of models, I think we should try instead of building new infrastructure.
Right, I think that's a great, again, principle of adaptation is reuse. You already
adaptation
have,
of
right? You already have those resources and they're left dormant. How do you add value and repurpose what is already there to bring additional income to communities that are probably suffering because of climate change?
Absolutely.
Right? Their livelihoods are being impacted because they work so closely with nature that green skilling and, you know, upskilling them in these different ways brings stability to those communities, and therefore adaptation can happen as we experience more and more erratic and extreme weather patterns. And so all of these examples are obviously gold. So thank you. But I'd like to turn it back to the audience and ask you all, each of you, to probably think about what we as a community, we all in the audience may not have our own cafe or our own ecotourism, companies, but we still eat food. We still choose where to travel, and those choices are ours to make. And I would like each of the panelists to probably speak to that and perhaps give us food for thought on what we might do to think about how we have a more positive impact as climate change becomes more and more extreme.
I think any change is a collective responsibility. So we had a very interesting workshop. We are repeating today afternoon also. Please join us. We can find out. But of course, as an individual, I think your choices can make a lot of difference. I think you might all know that Clean Cloth campaign happened in Europe. That sort of eradicated the child labor, because the consumers in Europe rejected the cloth which is using child labor. I mean, so probably, if you are mindful, I think consumer power is really, in an industry like tourism, which is really powerful. Like, for example, if you use more public transport, that definitely help, because if you go to Udupi weekend, you can't go to Malpe beach because huge traffic now. So everybody, maybe one or two people in a car. So you can use public transport and strengthen the public transport. Definitely, that's one way. And of course, eat locally, purchase locally. So we were discussing all this yesterday. The group came up with interesting suggestions how a consumer can, act on these things. So there are a lot of ways, definitely. And of course, I invite all of you afternoon also. Maybe we can find out, sit together and find out more ways we can also try to change this mammoth industry anyway. Yeah.
Participatory research. Love it.
So I mentioned it during the presentation, and this is something that I would like to speak about again. One is shells. So I think a lot about shells because one small thing can change a lot. Like shells also help in regulating the crabs that you have on the beaches, not just sand erosion. It helps in developing new bodies for new animal. It acts like a cycle. Along with this, when it comes to seafood, this is something that I always share. There are two groups that are doing it, two initiatives. One is In-Season Fish, and the other is Know Your Fish, where they put safe to eat fishes.
And this is on
every month.
social media.
It's on
right?
social media. They
So
have
you can follow them.
websites. Yeah. So they put like safe to eat fish, what fish you should eat on a monthly basis, because sometimes they're laying eggs. In fact, you as a community can take photos and send it to these kind of organization and tell them, oh, this is the breeding time now. As our climate keeps changing, as our seasons keep changing, so will the type of fish that we eat. Along with this, when it comes, this is a statement I want to make actually. How do we adapt to climate change? But then a lot of the climate change is also because of the things that we do unsustainably. A lot of places, a lot of areas are undeveloped, or they are not developed in a very sustainable way. They are understudied. There's no research being done in a proper manner, or they are, looking at it from a single direction. Nothing that we have in this space when it comes to environment, food, or climate is one direction. It is like a network. It's like mycelium. It's a fungus that spreads across in different directions. So you have to have different line of ways of going at it. Concrete is so uncreative. You just build it and it's there. But use your creativity, use art, use various different ways of, like you just said, I might visit your place sometime when I'm in Mangalore
You
again.
must.
Yeah. So, creativity is fun. Why make it so complicated by just, putting concrete? Who looks at walls? Like I look at wall, I feel bored. Look at straws, look at other structures, look at local fishes that are fishing, look at people who are farming, try to eat from them. There are a lot of indigenous rice that we are also trying to, work with. There's this salt tolerant rice that doesn't need fertilizer, doesn't need water. In the Kazan systems that you have in Goa, it's called Korgut. It literally takes brackish water. It survives and it grows. It thrives in brackish water. It's red in color and it's really delicious.
Wow.
So, yeah.
That's amazing. So I think what you're saying is our curiosity
Yeah.
to find out how we can make an impact really drives individuals to find, because these solutions are there. We just have to find the people, organizations, and problem solvers who are already in it. And I'd like Shreya to also add to this.
I think it's quite simple, yeah. I think we should just eat local, seasonal food as much as we can. I wouldn't even say like every day, every meal, but as much as you can. Swiggy, Instamart and Blinkit have become our best friends. I will not deny, even for me, because if I need something urgently, it's really quick. But I would still encourage, like, I take a conscious effort, like we do it because it's our work, but I would, encourage others also to take a conscious effort to just walk to the markets, because you will find ingredients that you've probably not seen, and the best way to know how to cook it is to ask the vegetable vendor. They will know how to cook it. They will tell you ways on any ingredient that you find foreign to you. You just ask them, go home, try it, whether you like it or not, then it just encourages them to continue keeping the things that they'll find, more indigenously rather than things that are they have to bring in by the tons. Uh, I have a page on Instagram called Taste Against Time, which I very recently started as a, what do you say, as an effort to just try and document not just traditional recipes, but ingredients and techniques that we can probably utilize in our day-to-day modern lives, right? Because every time I have this conversation with people, they're like, oh no, this vegetable, I don't know how to make sambar, I don't like to use it for this, so I will not use it. So my idea is to kind of show the ingredient itself in a different lens, where like our palates are more global now because we eat so many different types of cuisines, we are exposed to so much. So how can these indigenous ingredients become part of our palates, rather than the other way around where we are forcing to follow only the traditions, and only that's when we use these vegetables and fruits. So I try to do that through Taste Against Time, and while a lot of people understand, a lot of people are also like, oh no, why are you modernizing it? But the whole part, like this, I think I'll end with this. When people ask me what's important when you're trying to research, traditional culture and food, I think, honestly speaking, the recipes don't matter. The traditions, the recipes, they all keep evolving. The only thing that holds on to what the land was and what the land is going to be are the indigenous ingredients. Once that is lost, our food culture, our food traditions will all be lost. You cannot replace, you can't do a paneer sukka and call it a sukka. You know what I mean? You can't do that. You just can't. So the ingredients, you make a kadle manoli and you modernize a kadle manoli to a way that you like eating it, you're still honoring traditional Mangalorean, local Indian food traditions, because you are using the ingredients in your food. It's not about the recipe. Use the ingredient in whichever way you want, but don't stick to recipe and just use whatever. Like, don't use broccoli and kale and lettuce and all of that and try to call it fusion. That's not how it works.
All right. Well, thank you so much. I want to give, and I'm sure everyone in the audience has questions, besides when can we eat. So I'd like to open up the Q&A for the audience. Do we have the mic? Which will be our mic. Any questions from the audience? Yeah.
Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for a wonderful conversation. My question is to all of you, but particularly Sumesh sir and Shreya. I wanted to know if this is open-ended, and I might be coming from a space which is biased, but don't mind that. Is sustainable tourism more of a privilege, and is there some sense of inequity when it comes to sustainable tourism at large? What I'm trying to say is it accessible to everybody, people of every class? That's my question, yeah.
No, it's a very interesting question. This is exactly what we discussed yesterday. I mean, the workshop title is Ethical is Fun, because somehow any sustainable products, the image of sustainability today is expensive and restrictive and all. But I don't think it's not like that. For example, we created a lot of tourism programs which is access to almost everybody, because it's not at all expensive. And I feel somewhere, like for example, the classic example, when you use more and more local resources, it's a basic costing thing, no? It is less expensive actually. Like for example, anything you import, definitely your cost is, I'll tell you one example. We have a program in Ramanagara, close to Bangalore. So the district administration invited us to set up a museum, a silk museum. So the first meeting itself, we said we don't want to set up museum and we are not experts to set up museum, but we have a different plan. So what we did actually, instead of setting up a museum, we curated a experience and what is there, based on what is there. Like for example, there is a mulberry farmer, there is a, like, you know, every aspect of, silk is part of their life actually. So we curated like that. So just imagine that if you're creating a huge infrastructure for museum and, add that cost on consumer, definitely it is expensive. So what we found actually in our methodology also, the entire process is participatory. That is making, because we are using the knowledge of the people who live there, that makes this product less expensive. That's our experience basically. But of course, there are other products, they're also making it very expensive and all, because you are using very sophisticated technology in the name of sustainability and all. So that's a very interesting debate, but in our experience, definitely it's not expensive. I hope I answered.
I think that everybody wants to get in on that question.
No, I think while what you said makes complete sense, but especially to the larger audience, right? And nowadays, even if you see a lot on social media, sustainable luxury has become this really cool tag that comes along with everything. And I don't understand it, because you are, like you said, you're building infrastructure in remotest parts with a private runway and a helipad just for the wealthy to come and spend time. Whereas I feel, and that is what is promoted a lot more than the more affordable ones, like, for people. Because there are two types, the two ways that you look. It's either sustainable, means if you want to be sustainable, you should be able to afford it, which I feel is ironical. But the other one is, if you want to be sustainable, then live in hostels and nothing else. Don't expect anything other than the bare minimum. Whereas over the years now, of course, there are a lot more, but I think initially that's how it had started off. And people like Sumesh sir are, I think, bridging that gap between the two. But I have also noticed this thing a lot, where when you think about sustainability, you think that, do I have the money to be sustainable? Which is just, and sometimes those thoughts fall into my head also, like especially when you're buying fabric and clothes and stuff. A lot of sustainable brands are ultra expensive. I'm not saying expensive, because you have to pay a price to be ethical, you have to pay a price for quality product. But then it is like, you are selling a shirt for 22,000 rupees, makes zero sense to me. And I think it is, like I said, right, it can't be 100% everywhere. Like, we need to shift from that narrative. It is do what you can. Let's do best with what resources we have available. Let's not try to think that, oh, this should be done, otherwise there's no point in doing it. And yeah, that's what I just wanted to add to this.
Yeah. So first of all, I, agree with them, because sustainability is kind of like given that negative connotation that it's for the rich, or it's for like someone who can afford it. But I can tell you from like personal experiences, we go to a place, we'll talk about it, and we go back. That becomes in itself an experience, and it's sustainable and doesn't cost us much. So it's all about how you plan what program and activity you do. Should you have something where you have a private, again, runway, or a space where you have a boutique resort? Obviously, if you call that sustainable and you go to those spaces, it's going to be much more challenging. But again, like Sir mentioned, there are spaces that have been created that show that sustainable is not just for the elite, but also for the common man. So it's highly important that we, try to look at these places, and all of us have access to it. And those who don't have, access to this, you can be that torch, or you can basically be someone who can, inform them about these things. We do school groups, we do self-help groups with us, and we do these educational programs, so bare minimum when it's needed. Because only thing that will go for us is our travel to that space. We don't pick up anything, we don't remove anything. None of these things impact that general area. And that itself is, I think, sustainable, and beyond that, I think regenerative in a way. Because you're not removing something from there, you're letting it recover in its space. So, yeah.
Thank you for that. Any other questions? Oh, we have a question at the back. And we would like to end this in the next 10 minutes so that we can all go and eat.
Hello everyone, my question is to Shreya. So how far the consumer response has been for the revival of traditional foods you were mentioning about, because we have changed our palates to pizza and burger. So how far the consumer response has been?
Okay, I think people are supportive in terms of like, I'll give you two examples, and these are two extreme examples. Our hot sauce, like Charlene also said, Byadgi chili is the ingredient it's the hero ingredient that is used in it. It's our best-selling item. People come to eat it. We sell it by the bottle, all of that. Filter coffee, again, we've got a great response. People have we have customers who come daily for their coffee and not, the arguments that I say are very far and few now over the years where people don't. But at the same time, when we try to use seasonal vegetables, because see, the only way we can really show seasonality is through our vegetable and fruit more than meat, because meat is chicken. There's nothing much that you can do with all of that. We don't serve seafood at our space. I had a dish, and I think this was when, again, like I said, when my Taste Against Time videos started doing a little well and all of that, people were like, oh my God, why isn't this available in Buko? And we were like, okay, amazing, I'm going to try doing it. And breadfruit was in season then. We made this really nice breadfruit, I think breadfruit two ways, a little bit of a Japanese influence that went into it, because we didn't want to localize it again. We just wanted to use the local, seasonal vegetable that was there, and we put it on the menu as a weekend special. And in that entire weekend, we sold one sandwich of the breadfruit. So, so there are times when you are hit with reality as well, that, no matter what you do, but it is a constant process. So we don't stop at that. We keep trying. So some things are a hit. Like we had a Mexican food festival just that ended in February, where we took Mexican food influence, but we tried to make it, our style. And the Buko style is basically using local influences from Karnataka. So for tacos, we did akki roti tacos. We didn't use masa and all of that, the traditional way tacos are made. Bestseller. We did a nacho where we used sweet potato chips and tapioca chips instead of your regular nachos. Bestseller. So I can give you good examples, I can give you bad examples where we've been very dejected also by the response. But then I feel, it's our job to keep tweaking it and making sure that the customer understands. And when they give us, for us, it's like, if they give us this thing that, oh my God, we loved it, we just play with it and we go on full on with it and, try to bring in that little bit of Mangaloreanness, little bit of Karnataka into every single thing that we do. Slowly and steadily, I think this year I'm very sure I've made it a point when breadfruit comes in season, I'll make a dish that sells on the menu.
Yes, please do. I'll be there. Breadfruit is my favorite.
Mine too.
Yeah. I think any more questions from the audience? Otherwise, we'll give Alka a chance.
I know it's lunchtime. I'll make this really quick. As much as I like creating experiences, community experiences, I see that three of you come from three different cities. Like we have somebody from Mangalore, Goa, and Bangalore in the panel. So what is that experience in your particular city, not Mangalore because I'm here, what is that experience in sustainability that's been working in your city that we could bring it to Mangalore?
I'm not a person to answer from a very Bangalorean perspective.
No, in general.
Yeah,
then.
various reasons I base there, but I work across Karnataka. But I found I really enjoy working in Karnataka, to be very frank, because this state accept people a lot. I mean, I'm from, apologetically saying, we are not like that. Being a Malayali, I'm saying. And also, one thing I noticed, the cultural and other, resources of this state is amazing. Everywhere. I mean, I don't have that much, but at least 8-9 districts we did relatively good resource mapping, and I found this state is a lot to offer. And I mean, I just want to add that question also, because market is also important when you talk about tourism. But any studies or survey you look today, for example, there is a Booking.com survey. They do a sustainable report every year. I think next another 2-3 months, this year also coming. You take last year's, you can see that Indian travelers book through Booking.com, they lead sustainability. 86% of the people they surveyed want sustainable tourism experience, and also they're talking about community experiences. So everywhere you have excellent, like Udupi, for example, so excited, Mangalore, Udupi. So I think from that perspective, I think, a huge potential here. And certain extent, the state is also taking lead, I would say.
They're supportive.
We have a community tourism. Community tourism, Karnataka government is accepted in the last year budget. Probably the only state, I would say. We have to go a lot. But I think that's something really welcoming and receptive for me. So I really happy here.
Great, thank you.
So yes, something that works a lot in Goa, and that is something that we have already been trying to get into Mangalore and other spaces. So I come to Mangalore every month. Okay. So I'm in Mangalore almost every month doing programs with school kids or for something. We have created ecological programs, walks, which are research backed, information backed. We use heritage, we use culture, we use science to create programs which are unique and are also kind of, the thing right now. They're like something that you don't normally get to see. So we've seen that works for us in Goa, and we are trying to get those kind of programs here as well. And I think they would make great, they would be great for a place like Mangalore, because you'll have so many beautiful things happening around, whether it's history, culture, or ecology. And another thing that I feel when it comes to food also that we talk a lot about, we do it from a fishing side of it, conversation over dinner. So, or conservation over dinner. So, we call it both, where we sit down, we eat the local food, and we talk about how you are kind of, into sustainability by doing it. I think that's another thing that might work.
Next event
really
at
well.
Buko.
Next at Buko.
And it's very research backed, but these things are something that can, kind of scale up in a place like Mangalore. And you can start seeing people eventually come for this. You don't have to spend a lot of money. There's something that I do that's called shore walk. We go to the beach and we look at marine life on the beach. Okay. That doesn't take so much money.
Yeah,
just go to the beach. Yeah.
And I think things like that are already happening here in Mangalore
Heritage
with
walk.
the
Yes.
Coastal Heritage
Yes.
Collective.
Yes.
Caroline, thank you for starting that. And
Exactly, yeah. So
and more connections are happening at Mangaluru Design Summit to bring what our neighbors are doing well in terms of ecology, sustainability, and cultural appreciation, and contextualizing it with our community in collaboration with Mangaloreans here, so that everyone can experience that. I truly, truly appreciate all of the insight that and the appetite that you all have brought to the audience. I have more food puns up my sleeve. But before I leave you all, of course, we'd like to give you a token of our appreciation. And you can tell me if it is edible or not. I don't know. Shreya might be able to. Is it used? I don't know. Is it? I will check. Yeah.
So I did my thesis on lutein that's found in marigold, which is a lot of antioxidant properties. So,
All right.
yeah. So,
So you can use it in cooking? You can use it in. Oh, great. Oh, it has to be organic. Okay, awesome. Alka? And then we'll take a group photograph later. And we'll just take a group photograph.